Welcome to the deep dive. We take complex topics, stacks of information really, and boil them down to what you actually need to know, the surprising bits. Today we're diving into isoleucine. Now, you probably haven't heard that name much, but it's an essential amino acid, and it plays this, well, really surprising, multifaceted role in almost everything your body does. Building muscle, keeping your immune system firing, all sorts of things. It's one of those key building blocks your body just can't make itself. And it's part of that famous BCAA family, the branched-chain amino acids.
Exactly. And our goal today really is to cut through all the technical jargon and give you a clear path to understanding isoleucine. We'll look at its biochemistry, sure, but also its functions in the body and, importantly, what it means for your health. Think of it as uncovering this hidden helper that's been working away behind the scenes all along.
Okay, let's do that. Let's pull back the curtain. On a really basic level, what is isoleucine? Chemically speaking, what makes it unique?
Well, chemically, it's an amino acid, of course, but it has this distinctive branched side chain structure. What's neat is that it's nonpolar, hydrophobic, but also kind of amphipathic. That means it can interact with both fatty environments and watery environments inside your cells. Very versatile. And like you said, it's one of the three BCAAs, which are really known for their role in muscle energy. So it's built for action, you could say.
Okay, versatile. And I remember reading something fascinating. So this is where it gets really interesting, right? Isoleucine has this kind of metabolic superpower. It's not just one thing for energy.
It absolutely isn't. That's one of the most surprising things about it. It can be used through both glucogenic and ketogenic pathways.
Okay, break that down. Glucogenic and ketogenic.
Right. So the glucogenic pathway means your body can convert it into stuff that eventually becomes glucose, basically. Sugar for energy. Think of it as an emergency energy reserve if you need sugar. But then it can also go down the ketogenic pathway. That means it gets converted into acetyl-CoA, which is a building block for ketone bodies. Ketones are another great fuel source, especially, when you're low on carbohydrates.
So it can become sugar or ketones, depending on what the body needs.
Exactly. It's incredibly flexible. And this breakdown, this catabolism, happens right in the muscle mitochondria using a specific enzyme complex called BCKDH. So the energy is produced right where it's often needed most.
That dual pathway does sound incredibly efficient. Okay, so powerhouse for energy. But let's talk muscles. We hear so much about amino acids for muscle building. What's isoleucine's specific job there?
Its job is absolutely fundamental. Isoleucine acts as a direct building block. It gets incorporated straight into new muscle proteins. Think of it like supplying the actual bricks and mortar needed for building muscle tissue, or for repairing it after you exercise, or if you're injured or sick.
Okay, so it's the material itself.
Precisely. And here's a key difference you might find interesting, especially compared to its BCAA cousin, leucine. Leucine is famous for, flipping the switch to start muscle protein synthesis. It activates something called the mTOR pathway. But isoleucine, it's providing the actual raw materials. It's delivering the concrete and steel, so to speak, that leucine signals the need for.
Got it. Leucine orders the construction, isoleucine brings the supplies.
That's a great analogy, yeah. And this makes it super important for athletes, obviously, but also for older adults trying to fight off sarcopenia, that muscle loss that happens with age. And definitely for patients recovering from surgery or illness. And building on that muscle role, its part in overall energy metabolism is really quite profound. Remember that dual pathway we talked about? That lets it provide ATP, the body's main energy currency, especially during long workouts or when you're fasting.
The backup generator idea again?
Exactly. It can support making new glucose, gluconeogenesis, especially if you're cutting back on carbs. So it really helps keep your energy levels stable during intense activity, fasting, or any kind of physiological stress. It's just a really valuable alternative fuel.
So what does this all mean for something as fundamental as blood sugar? Can isoleucine actually help keep that in check?
It really can, and this is a super interesting area of research. Isoleucine seems to have a few mechanisms. First, it helps enhance glucose uptake directly into your muscle cells, so it's literally pulling sugar out of your bloodstream.
Oh, wow. So it lowers blood sugar naturally.
In effect, yes, by improving where it goes. It also seems to slow down how quickly your stomach empties after a meal. That means the sugars from your food are released more slowly, helping to prevent those sharp, unhealthy spikes in blood glucose right after eating.
Ah, okay, so it smooths out the curve.
Exactly. Smooths the curve. And generally, when it's part of a balanced diet, it supports overall insulin sensitivity. There are clinical studies showing it helps reduce those post-meal glucose surges. So yeah, it plays a really crucial part in maintaining steady blood glucose, which is just vital for overall metabolic health in the long run. And it doesn't stop there. It's also, perhaps surprisingly, critical for making hemoglobin.
Hemoglobin, the stuff in red blood cells that carries oxygen.
The very same. Isoleucine is essential for synthesizing it, so it's indirectly involved in getting oxygen to every single part of your body. Plus, it helps out the immune system by facilitating the production of antibodies and various immune cells. It strengthens your defenses. And, thinking about repair again, it provides those raw materials needed for tissue healing and supports the immune response right at the site of an injury. So, taken together, adequate isoleucine really supports recovery, oxygen delivery, and keeps your immune system resilient. And for kids, it's absolutely fundamental. During childhood growth spurts, they need tons of building blocks for muscle, organs, connective tissue. Isoleucine provides those essential amino acids. It helps maintain what we call a positive nitrogen balance.
Positive nitrogen balance, meaning they're building more tissue than they're breaking down.
Exactly. It's crucial for healthy growth rates. Getting enough isoleucine is vital for proper development and avoiding growth delays. A deficiency during childhood can, unfortunately, have some pretty long-lasting health consequences. But here's something really fascinating. Its potential link to visceral fat.
Visceral fat, the dangerous stuff around the organs.
That's the one. Some research suggests that BCAAs, including isoleucine, might contribute to having less of that deep, metabolically active fat. The thinking is it helps regulate energy metabolism, maybe nudging the body towards burning more fat for fuel, especially when you exercise.
So it could help shift fuel use.
Potentially, yes. It seems to work well with exercise to enhance lipolysis, that's the breakdown of fat. This could help reduce central obesity, which we know is a big risk factor for things like metabolic syndrome and heart disease. It helps you hold on to lean muscle while encouraging fat burning, especially if you're cutting calories. And just to dive a bit deeper on immunity for a second, isoleucine's contribution is quite specific. It directly supports the production and differentiation of various immune cells, lymphocytes, T cells, B cells. Think of it as helping build and train your immune army. Some estimates suggest it's involved in like 60% of that process.
60%, wow.
Yeah, it's significant. It also helps maintain the physical barriers like your skin and mucous membranes by ensuring enough protein is available for their upkeep. That's like reinforcing the castle walls. And critically, during times of stress, illness, injury, the immune system needs a lot of fuel and raw materials to mount a response. Isoleucine provides both, so it's really valuable when your immune system is under pressure.
Okay, so this stuff is clearly doing a lot. For people who are active, athletes, or even just weekend warriors trying to recover, how does this translate into real-world benefits, like after a workout?
Yeah, for active folks, isoleucine, usually taken as part of a BCAA mix, offers some pretty clear recovery advantages. It's been shown to help reduce muscle soreness, that dreaded DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. It can decrease feelings of fatigue after a hard session.
Less soreness, faster recovery. Sounds good.
Exactly. It also seems to minimize markers of exercise-induced muscle damage and helps athletes get back to their peak strength quicker between workouts. That combined effect with leucine and valine is why BCAA supplements are such a staple in sports nutrition. They really target that recovery window. And beyond the gym, it has some important clinical uses too. For instance, in patients with liver disease, it can help support the liver's own protein synthesis and regeneration efforts. It gives the stressed organ fuel and building blocks. It's also a crucial ingredient in specialized nutrition formulas given to severe burn patients. Their protein needs are massive for healing, and isoleucine helps meet that demand.
Makes sense. Extreme tissue repair needed there.
Absolutely. And similarly, for patients recovering from major surgery, getting enough isoleucine helps preserve their lean body mass, which can be easily lost during recovery, and it supports better wound healing.
That's a really impressive list of benefits. Muscles, energy, blood sugar, immunity, recovery. But, okay, this raises an important point. It sounds almost too good. Are there any, nuances, potential downsides we need to consider?
That's a really smart question, and yes, there are important nuances. This is where the science gets quite interesting and requires a balanced view. While moderate intake, like you get from a balanced diet, clearly has benefits for glucose uptake and everything else we've discussed, Some studies, both in humans and animals, have linked chronically high levels of BCAAs, including isoleucine, with insulin resistance.
Oh, interesting. So too much of a good thing might be not so good.
Potentially, yes, especially if it's chronically elevated, maybe from very high-dose supplementation over long periods. There's even some emerging research suggesting that moderating BCAA intake might actually improve metabolic health in certain situations, like in some models of obesity.
Right, so it's about balance, not just piling it on.
Exactly. Balance is key. It really emphasizes the whole foods first approach. Getting isoleucine from food sources keeps things in proportion with other nutrients. High-dose supplements should really be approached with caution, and ideally with guidance from a healthcare professional, especially if you already have metabolic issues like insulin resistance or diabetes. So thinking about that balance, what are the actual daily requirements? How much do we need and where do we get it? Good question. For most adults, the general recommendation is somewhere around 19 to 20 milligrams per kilogram of body weight per day.
Okay, what does that look like practically for, say, an average adult?
For someone around 70 kilos or 154 pounds, that works out to roughly 1.3 to 1.4 grams of isoleucine per day. Not a huge amount, actually.
And food sources, easy to get.
Generally, yes, if you're eating a varied diet with enough protein. Great animal sources are things like chicken, beef, fish, eggs, and dairy products, milk, yogurt, cheese. And for plant-based options, you're looking at soybeans, tofu, edamame, lentils, chickpeas, nuts like almonds, seeds like pumpkin or sunflower seeds, and whole grains.
So lots of options. Any tips for hitting the target?
Yeah, simple things work best. Try to include a decent protein source in every meal. If you're plant-based, combining legumes like beans or lentils with grains like rice or quinoa is a classic way to get a complete amino acid profile. Using dairy or soy milk in smoothies or cereal helps too. The main thing, especially with plant-based diets, is just variety. Mix it up to make sure you cover all your bases. Now, just circling back to safety and supplementation for a moment, we strongly recommend that whole foods first approach.
Right, because of the balance you mentioned.
Exactly. Whole foods give you isoleucine in the right proportions with other amino acids, plus all the vitamins, minerals, and fiber that work together. Taking high-dose supplements, especially of single amino acids, can throw that balance off. It can potentially put extra strain on your kidneys over the long term and might even interfere with how your body normally metabolizes amino acids.
And certain people should be extra careful.
Definitely. Pregnant women, children, their needs are different and imbalances can be riskier. And anyone with pre-existing metabolic conditions, like kidney disease or those metabolic disorders we touched on earlier, the bottom line is always talk to a doctor or a registered dietitian before you start taking high-dose amino acid supplements. That being said, there are situations where supplementation can be beneficial when used correctly.
Like for the athletes we talked about.
Yes, exactly. Helping preserve muscle during really intense training blocks or when someone is restricting calories, reducing that post-exercise muscle soreness and fatigue, and potentially helping older adults combat age-related muscle loss, sarcopenia, as part of a broader strategy. Just to quickly recap how it works. It gets built directly into new muscle protein. It can be used as fuel by the muscles, sparing glycogen. It helps glucose get into muscle cells and plays a role in regulating insulin sensitivity. And remember, it's part of that BCAA team. Leucine is the main trigger for muscle building, mTOR. Isoleucine is key for energy supply and glucose regulation. And valine helps with muscle energy and nitrogen balance. They work together.
But the key takeaway is balance. And probably avoid megadosing without advice.
Precisely. Balance and caution with supplements.
So given how vital it is for all these different systems, what actually happens if someone doesn't get enough isoleucine? What does a deficiency look like in the real world?
That's a really important question. Now, a true deficiency is quite rare in developed countries where people generally get enough protein. But it can happen. You see it in cases of severe malnutrition or with extremely restrictive diets, maybe some poorly planned vegan diets if they aren't varied enough. Also in certain genetic metabolic disorders and during critical illnesses where the body's demands just skyrocket.
Okay, so if it does happen, what are the signs? What systems get hit?
The effects are pretty widespread, unfortunately. A big one is muscle weakness and wasting. Without enough isoleucine, protein synthesis slows right down. This leads to progressive weakness, you lose lean body mass faster, physical performance suffers, and recovery from any kind of exertion takes much longer.
Who's most at risk for that?
The elderly are definitely vulnerable, as are people hospitalized for long periods, and even athletes if their nutrition isn't keeping up with their training demands. Then there's impaired immunity. Fewer building blocks mean reduced antibody production, immune cells don't multiply as effectively, and people become more susceptible to infections.
Makes sense, linking back to its immune role.
Exactly. And low energy levels are common too. Isoleucine is needed for those energy pathways, so a lack means less ATP production. This results in chronic fatigue and reduced exercise tolerance. We also see blood glucose dysregulation. Remember how it helps glucose get into muscles? Well, without enough, that process is impaired. You can get unstable blood sugar levels, and over time, insulin sensitivity can decline.
So it impacts metabolic health quite directly.
Very directly. Poor wound healing is another major sign. Collagen synthesis needs amino acids, including isoleucine. Without enough, wounds just don't heal well. This is a huge issue for surgical patients or burn victims. In children, as we mentioned, it can cause growth retardation. They just don't grow as expected, affecting height, weight, even bone maturation. And in really severe cases, you can even see neurological issues, things like brain fog, trouble concentrating, irritability, mood swings. The rare genetic disorder maple syrup urine disease is a drastic example where BCAA metabolism, including isoleucines, goes wrong, leading to severe neurological damage if untreated.
Wow, it really affects almost everything.
It does. Other signs can include skin problems like dryness or fragility, hair loss, fluid retention or edema, loss of appetite, just a general picture of decline. Managing it requires, first, identifying it through things like blood tests measuring amino acid levels, checking nitrogen balance, and looking closely at nutritional intake and functional status. Then the intervention is usually focused on optimizing the diet, aiming for higher protein intake, maybe 1.2 to 2.0 grams per kilogram per day, sometimes using targeted BCAA supplements under supervision, or in critical cases using intravenous feeding, parenteral nutrition.
So recognizing who's at risk and intervening with the right nutrition is key.
Absolutely essential for improving outcomes and just overall quality of life when deficiency is a concern.
It really is incredible to think about the huge, wide-ranging impact of this single, often overlooked amino acid.
It truly is. What's fascinating here, I think, is how something as seemingly simple as a basic building block like isoleucine can underpin such a vast array of critical bodily functions, from your muscle strength and energy levels to immune defense, even childhood growth. It really underscores that knowledge is most valuable when you understand it and can actually apply it. So, maybe think about this. How might this deeper understanding of isoleucine's nuanced roles, especially around things like insulin sensitivity and the critical importance of whole foods over just popping supplements, how might that change how you approach your own personal health and nutrition journey?